Hill, the organization that I run, develops user-friendly justice. With that, we mean justice that is affordable, accessible, easy to understand, and produces what people want most from justice, namely fair solutions. When I set up Hill in 2005, all I knew was that justice generally was not user-friendly. But I didn't really know what to do about it. So we started by learning. We learned about innovation. We developed ways in which we could try and understand the needs and the experiences that people have with justice systems. We used data to develop new types of procedures. And we worked with justice leaders in different parts of the world to see how they could become innovation champions, sorry. Now, recently, we pulled together the data on justice that we've been collecting for the past 4 years. We've been at it for about 6. And these comprise around 70,000 voices, 70,000 people that we interviewed from 12 countries, Africa, the Arab world, Europe, and 1 Asian country. A new trend report in which we bring this together will appear somewhere in March, April. But here's a sneak preview with some conclusions. First of all, it's interesting to see that 60% of the justice needs that people in the world seem to have involve only 5 problems. And they rotate around family disputes, neighbor disputes, employment disputes, land, and crime. These all concern absolutely critical relationships for people. The safety of the family, your job, your house, safety. Shockingly, a little over 70% of the people who experience such problems tell us that they did not get a satisfactory solution. Almost 30% of the people don't even feel empowered to take action. And we spoke about women early on. Across the board, women get less justice than men. And for each of these problems, people tell us about severe consequences, from violence and loss of livelihood to damaged relationships and a lot of health problems. What would we say if our health systems did not really cure 70% of the problems? Now, how many people does this affect? In 2008, a commission of wise men and women put together by the UN said 4 billion people in the world do not have adequate access to justice. I believe the number is actually a lot higher, because this commission only looked at reports and data from so-called developing countries. But what we know from our data is that the justice systems of the so-called Western rich countries aren't doing that well either. So putting the number in the range of 6 billion would be more realistic to me. Now, think about this. 6 billion people is a staggering amount of people. It's 3/4 of the world's population. It's more than the number of people that suffer from the most serious global health threats that we know of, like malaria, TB, and cancer. And remember what we're talking about, which effects this has on people. Damaged relationships, loss of livelihood, loss of health, and a lot of violence. Now, looking into the future, this problem becomes even more urgent. We live in a time of change. A time, and we've heard that from the previous speaker, where technology and science are developing so fast that our habits and social structures could hardly keep up. Thinkers about the future predict huge employment challenges and transitions when they think about the future of work, cybercrime and privacy issues, our daily news. Trust is chronically on the decline by all measures. Looking ahead, effective justice systems that deliver fair solutions will be badly needed. And we know current systems are not delivering. So we have a big justice problem. And in many ways, to me, it's almost as big as the global warming problem. Now, the challenge we face needs two things. The first is a lot of innovation, because the existing systems are not delivering. Two, it needs solutions at scale. You talked about that. Because a lot of people need to be reached. Now, the best way of delivering both innovation and scale that humans have come up with in history thus far is well-functioning markets. I'm going to be controversial here, but I'll also be clear. I am not standing here to advocate for the privatization of justice. But what I am proposing is that we make some systemic changes to construct a justice market that involves government, civil society, and the private sector in ways that produces both innovation and solutions at scale. There are 6 billion potential customers out there for products and services that help resolve disputes around the 5 key relationships and needs that I talked about: family, work, land, neighbor, and crime. The pain these people suffer is real. Violence, loss of livelihood, damaged relationships, and loss of health. Now, some of the core elements of an effective market are: first, there is a need, as precisely quantified as possible. And we know disappointingly little about the justice needs and experience of people. We never asked the customers of the system. Secondly, a good market has some kind of generally accepted currency to measure which product or service best meets that need. Now, what happens if legislators, courts, and bar associations don't produce enough? Nothing much, it appears. Thirdly, an effective market has incentives to invest. Now, where is the equivalent of the Bill Gates Foundation, the many trusts, the government funding mechanisms that we know from the health sector? And fourth, there is competition and access in a well-functioning market. Now, we ask our winning justice entrepreneurs each year where the main resistance comes from when they want to scale up and grow. And the answer is always the same: ministries of justice and bar associations, who monopolize and block access. Now, however you may grumble about your national health system, be it the NHS or some other system, the fact is that, broadly speaking, for many decades in a row, treatments are being improved and invented, and access to healthcare has constantly been on the increase. That's because in most countries, there is a health marketplace that works kind of fairly well. Now, here are 4 things that I think we need to do. Maybe some silver bullets. The first is we need to invest in data. Data about the most pressing justice needs that people have, and really try and understand that. We need more data about what works, what is delivering, and why. And we need to organize that data in a way that it's easy to find for citizens, NGOs, international organizations, easy to play with, and easy to understand. Now, Hill has pioneered in the justice needs surveys field. The World Justice Project has set up a very impressive rule of law index. But the more we do it, the more we see what is still needed. Smarter and even cheaper ways to collect data. Better dashboards. We're now working on an SDG 16 data alliance, as we call it, a trust fund of €5 million for 5 years to collect data from the 30 poorest countries of the Fragile States Index, and to make that available. Next week, I'll be in Beirut to work on smart ways to collect data in countries in conflict so that we can start predicting future justice needs. Secondly, we need to create innovation space to do something with what the data is telling us. Space for justice professionals to use all the knowledge and experience that they have and to combine it with other knowledge to develop solutions. Space to fail, space to learn, space to iterate. We've been trying this out for the last 5 years with our Justice Accelerator and a number of social labs that we've worked, and we see that it works. The creativity that we encounter is very, very hopeful. But, and there's a big but there that I think you referred to as well, we need to go beyond producing nerdy solutions. The innovation space also needs to connect innovative ideas with institutions, the big systems that scale and that are now mostly an impediment to change, an impediment to user-friendly justice. That means new roles for ministries of justice and parliaments, new roles for bar associations, new roles for law societies. And thirdly, we need to make it interesting and worthwhile to invest in justice entrepreneurs. Much in the same way that funding can be found for innovation in the health sector. I'm now working with others to set up an innovating justice investment fund, where we're trying to get impact investors to move into the justice sector. Who will dare to join us? And fourthly, we need to teach the skills and develop the knowledge to work in this way. That means a serious rethink of law school curricula, what law societies and bar associations teach, and the research agenda of universities. Dear friends, the 4 traditional pistons of the justice engine, ministries of justice, parliaments, judges, lawyers, are clearly not delivering the fair solutions that people need. And the effects on people are huge. Ultimately, and I refer to what the ambassador said when he opened this event, they are the seeds of economic stagnation, resentment, anger, and even large-scale violence. And we're not going to solve this by hoping that this engine will all of a sudden massively start innovating. We need to make some system changes. The relatively simple and manageable things that we could start doing. And these can unleash small waves of innovation that can become bigger waves over time. But we must act. Thank you.